the regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting for the Village of Tinley Park to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Can I get a roll call?
Present.
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 Commissioner Merrick? Here. Commissioner Sussey? Commissioner Truxell?
Here.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. We'll move on to communications. Staff, are there any communications at this time? No, there's not. Okay. We'll move on to approval of the meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 18th, 2023 regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting?
Motion. Second.
Okay. I heard a motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Truxell. All those in favor of approving the May 18th, 2023 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. We'll move on to the only item in tonight's meeting. It's a workshop to consider recommending that the village board grant Leonard McHenry on behalf of Gas and Wash a special use for an automobile service station and an automobile car wash and variations, urban design overlay, parking minimum, parking locations, wall, ground signs, etc., to permit a gas station with a convenience store, car wash, and 2 drive-through restaurants uses at the property located at 18301 LaGrange Road at the southeast corner of LaGrange Road and 183rd Street in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District. Site plan and final plat approval are also being considered at the meeting. Staff, if you can make your presentation at this time.
Just as a really quick, so Michael's gonna lead the charge for most of this project, but I just wanted to kind of do a quick introduction of everything here. So we have the traffic and parking and all that's gonna become, it's a gas station, it's on a busy corner, so that's why Dana West is here from Robinson Engineering. So she's here as a resource as well as John Urbanski, who's our public works director. So just because we know that, I thought it was a good opportunity to have them here as a resource. I'll say Gas and Wash has been a really good partner on this site. It's a challenging site, so as we kind of work through this, not everything is 100% ideal, but it is very challenging in terms of topography, access. And this has been kind of a long time coming. We've been working with the developer and their team to try and come up with how do we make this work? How do we make this site work? Because I think it's pretty challenging. So they've been, we've worked through a number of kind of layouts and site iterations that got us where we're at today. I'll also say I think they have some updates as well today. So once we go through our presentation, I would maybe go ahead and let them kind of chime back then fairly quickly, because I think they maybe have some updates on where they're going to be going with it. So we'll kind of run through it and as you guys have seen it, and then kind of see where they have to go. So that's my, I guess, this is just a workshop too, so no votes today. A little more informal. If you guys do have questions as we go through it, feel free to ask them before the public hearing at the next meeting. I'll hand it over to Michael, who's going to be starting the show.
All right, so the proposal is for a gas station, car wash, convenience store with 2 drive-through restaurants. A special use permit is required for both the gas station and the car wash. There's a lot of variations going on. The site, or the project is seeking site plan and architectural approval, as well as final plat approval. The zoning and the surroundings, the address is 1301 LaGrange. It's at the southeast corner. It's zone B3. It's in the urban design overlay district. And both automobile service station and automobile car wash, when attached to a service station, are special uses in the B3 district. To the north of the site is 183rd Street and undeveloped land. White Eagle Drive and a Marriott Hotel. To the south is more hotels and a restaurant, and to the west is LaGrange Road and undeveloped land. Part of the undeveloped land is in Orland Park and part is in unincorporated Cook County. So the relief requested for the project, we need special use permits, major exceptions from the Urban Design 1 overlay district, exceptions related to signage, parking, and landscaping. The plat was signed May 19th. It splits the lot into two separate lots. It proposes a cross-access easement along the western property line, and it proposes a utility easement in the center. As to the context of the site, there is potential for pedestrian customers within a 10-minute walk. There's dozens of homes, dozens of jobs, and the undeveloped land potential to the west. The streets, however, in the area are dangerous and unpleasant to pedestrians and cyclists. LaGrange is signed for very high speeds. LaGrange and 183rd intersection is very wide, and there's very wide turn radii that facilitate high-speed turn movements. There's no existing bicycle or pedestrian infrastructure in the vicinity, and there's no infrastructure present in the vicinity to encourage adherence to posted speed limits. The location vicinity is hostile to non-vehicle travel. The village has limited control over street design in this area because 183rd is owned by the county and LaGrange is owned by the state. There's also pretty significant topography changes, especially for flat Illinois. The high point of the site is 18 feet higher than the low point of the site, and it generally goes high from the southeast to low at the northwest. The stormwater facility is being proposed at the high point of the site. As for access, the developer is being required to build sidewalks on White Eagle Drive and 183rd Street to their property limits. They're proposing 5 curb cuts. Only 1 is allowed per site in the Urban Design Overlay District. 1 curb cut is from 183rd eastbound, which is a right-in, right-out. It has an island, so it's 2 curb cuts. White Eagle Drive at the northern portion is full access. White Eagle Drive in the central portion is truck entry only. White Eagle Drive to the south is full access. The Urban Design District says that curb cuts cannot be greater than 30 feet in width, and at least 2 of these curb cuts exceed that. Not all of them were labeled, so the other 3 may as well. And then there may be repairs and striping required on White Eagle Drive for the project. For pedestrian circulation, there's walkways connecting 183rd Street to the convenience store and White Eagle Drive to the convenience store. The northern walkway is reasonably direct, though walking through driveways provides more direct routes for pedestrians to the convenience store. The eastern walkway is circuitous. Walking through driveways provides a substantially more direct route to the convenience store. Several pedestrian vehicle conflicts will occur with the proposed plan with a number of driveways, and the pedestrian experience is made less safe with wide turn radii to accommodate truck ingress and egress, as well as those wide radii encourage higher speeds from motorists and increase the crossing distance. So for the first drive-through restaurant, there's a map up here, diagram of the circulation that will occur for customers using each of the 3 main access points to access the site. So from 183rd Street, vehicles will loop in, do a U-shaped turn, and then continue into the queue. Customers coming from White Eagle Drive will do a even sharper U-shaped turn to get into the queue, and customers coming from the south will have a more natural access to the site. So a queuing exhibit was not provided with the most recent submittal. It was in previous submittals. The traffic report, however, states that there is queue space for 13 bumper-to-bumper vehicles. The traffic report states that this amount of stacking is adequate and will not cause backups. There is a potential for backups on 183rd Street from vehicles queuing, and that would be like a real-world condition scenario. And drive-through number 1, exit circulation should not cause any issues. For drive-through number 2, again, the queuing exhibit was not provided with the most recent submittal. The traffic report states that there will be queue space for at least 10 bumper-to-bumper vehicles. The traffic report says that this amount of stacking is adequate and will not cause backups. For this drive-through location, any backup that does occur will occur in the development's parking areas and not on county or village roads. And then pedestrians must cross the drive-through lanes to access the convenience store through the rear building entrance. And again, exit circulation should not cause any problems. As Dan mentioned, development of this scale and of this nature will cause impacts to surrounding roadways. The proposed development is anticipated to create significant backups at 183rd and LaGrange. Backups currently occur during the evening peak hour. There's anticipated backups on White Eagle Drive as vehicles attempt to make left turns to 183rd Street. Vehicles may back up onto 183rd if the driveway to drive through 1 is blocked with queuing, vehicles queuing, and the northern driveway onto northbound White Eagle Drive may cause blockages as vehicles attempt to turn left to cut in, which creates a pretty significant safety concern. The traffic report indicates that inadequate queuing is provided on White Eagle Drive. This will reduce the intersection rating from B to F. The county has not requested site configuration changes or any additional roadway infrastructure at this time. The county did request a revised traffic study and signal warrant analysis, and comments from the state have not been received or shared. So this is a map showing the vehicle movements that are potential issue sites. So the green arrow is that 183rd access point that could sometimes be blocked by vehicles queuing for that drive-through number 1. The red arrow onto White Eagle Drive is the location where there could be that cut-in traffic where southbound vehicles on White Eagle Drive are blocked by vehicles attempting to turn left and cut in. And then left vehicle movements from White Eagle onto 183rd Street will cause additional backups to what we see today. There's potential modifications that can happen to alleviate some of these issues. Eliminating or converting the northern driveway into a right-in, right-out limits the potential for cut-in traffic. Increased queuing space on White Eagle Drive can help mitigate traffic concerns. And repair, striping, and at a minimum, resurfacing is needed on White Eagle Drive. Now we're getting a little bit more into the urban design overlay stuff. The overlay district prescribes a 0 to 20-foot build-to line. The convenience store building is, as proposed, situated at least 150 feet from LaGrange, at least 200 feet from 183rd Street, and at least 150 feet from White Eagle Drive. The north side of the building is parallel to 183rd Street, which our zoning ordinance defines as the front of the development. It's the narrowest lot dimension. Driveways, parking lots, fueling areas, and queuing space define the character of the site and occur on all sides of both buildings. Building orientation and site configuration are not compatible with urban design principles. Here's an exhibit that indicates kind of the pedestrian experience arriving at the site. So the image on the bottom is designed as the front of the building, fronting LaGrange. So you would have potentially pedestrians coming from the east on 183rd Street and using this driveway or walkway to the south of the driveway to get to the convenience store. Similar thing is happening if you turn onto White Eagle as a pedestrian, you're going through truck queuing or truck fueling areas and drive-through lanes. The top image shows that the side fronting White Eagle Drive is very much designed as the rear of the building and doesn't feature any real fenestration to indicate the entrance to both people arriving by truck and people arriving on foot.
I just, could we see if either the mics are muted or I don't know if person can double check, but it sounds like those are working, but I don't think ours are picking up.
Are they all green on the?
They're all green here, yeah. Matt, is there anything in the back that you see? Our tech guy. Are the mics on the lower table operational?
I just didn't know if it's not muted or anything up there, it's green.
No.
Everything's green,
They're all green.
yeah.
As far as I can see, the one.
So, so yeah, try it again, Dan.
It's just these two, I think, that are.
Should I move or continue projecting?
If you can't, yeah, if you can move there, maybe that'll work.
Okay, I'll do that.
Either do that or the podium, just otherwise nobody's gonna hear it.
All right, so the architectural design of the building is cohesive between both the car wash and convenience store buildings. The car wash and convenience store buildings are entirely brick with stone foundation treatment and red branding elements. The front facade, which is the automobile customer entrance, has transparent windows and false windows, a canopy, and awnings over the false windows. The rear facade, which is the truck and pedestrian customer entrance, has two service doors, a drive-through window, and one somewhat inconspicuous glass entry door. The car wash has similar treatments. The automobile fueling canopy features stone detail at the base and brick detail on the columns to match the building, and the truck fueling canopy does not have these details and instead has black posts. So here's the design of the convenience store building. As you can see, it's got the brick, it's got the stone, there's the red elements that are, making up a small portion of the site. It's not overwhelming the red. You've got the mullions, the awning detail, as well as it looks like some cornice detail. And then similarly, on the car wash, you have a similar design language. There's a hipped roof, and the car wash has false windows along that, what is that? The northern facade, that's the top one. And that makes it a little bit more pleasant as you're on the site to, have the perception of, not a big dead wall. It's like a design like a building. So for signage, there is significant number of variations needed to proceed with the signage plan as proposed. The overwhelming majority of signs do not meet code requirements. The majority of the proposed non-compliant signage is non-compliant because it is oversized. The next slide, I'll show you which signs are non-compliant with a red circle, and there are also several non-compliant directional signs, which I did not go into for the presentation. So here you can see all but 2 locations for signage are non-compliant with the zoning ordinance. And that's 1 sign on the car wash and then 1 sign on the car wash pay station canopy. And just to add, staff is generally supportive of most of these variations that will need to be requested. For parking, landscaping, and lighting, very brief overview. The applicant is currently proposing 54 parking spaces, which is below our code minimum. However, if you include the fueling bays and vacuum stations, it brings the number of spaces up significantly. And based on how people use gas station and car wash sites, I think it's appropriate to include those spaces as parking spaces. The proposed lighting plan is compliant with the zoning ordinance, and the proposed landscaping requires waivers. However, it's clear they did the best they could with the constraints of the site and the nature of the development. And then here's the landscape plan, the black and white that was provided, that shows there's a substantial number of trees provided along the LaGrange frontage, and then, you know, wherever there isn't a driveway, it's been proposed on 183rd and on White Eagle. And this is scheduled to go to Plan Commission June 15th.
Okay.
I'll touch on a couple things real quick. And just to kind of highlight, this has come up with the other development on 183rd, the other gas and wash, so it's not kind of the first time we've gone through some of these ones. The urban design overlay district, so a lot of those requirements have, almost no matter what project we get, there's been some variations there. And I think it, as a tool, is some standards for what we want to see in development. It's very good. To place those kind of as actual requirements in an area that's already developed is very, very difficult. So in a gas station, car wash is very auto-oriented, right? So trying to make walkability in a gas station is very difficult. So that's why a number of those kind of came up. And I think we try and work on the intent of that by still bringing in some walkability, bringing in sidewalks when we can, trying to make sure it works, but obviously it's still very difficult there, so. With regards to signage as well, that's, for the most part, as you can see in the staff report, there's a number of them we are supportive of. And that's kind of just come off the last 2, the one on Harlem that got annexed into the village, and then the one on 183rd that got developed kind of from a greenfield perspective, that some of those just, it is a very unique site. It's a big site, it's a big canopy, there's multiple different users in there. Fairly unique to not really what our sign code was envisioning to try and regulate. It's a little bit more like a multi-tenant shopping center than it is just kind of one use out there. So that's why there's been some flexibility in the past given to these. But there are still a couple in there that I think could potentially just meet the code. So, and I think maybe they'll have some responses to that as well today. Lastly, I don't know if Dana wants to maybe give a little, we can go back to the traffic side of it. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add from kind of what your group has seen on the site or off the site, if there's anything. Generally, the memo already was in the packet, and I think Michael kind of went over what that is too. Our recommendations, kind of, there's a couple things there that we'd recommend get done now. And then we're also recommending potentially a condition. We haven't worked out the exact wording yet, and we could work with the petitioner on that to say, basically, we know there is, even if we do this, we know there's still potentially some issues that could arise here. What we want to make sure is that if those do arise, once this is developed, there's still going to be a partner in resolving that. And that it's not just going to go onto the village to basically try and find the solution to it, that there it's potential, it's being caused by this. We don't know exactly what it's gonna look like. But if it does exist, they'll be able to, kind of still help with getting that resolved. So, those are kind of our recommendations, knowing that, again, this is a tough site, tough access points. The lack of a LaGrange access really hurts here, and it doesn't matter who it is. I think I can confidently say everybody's, it's telling they're not even trying for it, because I think when you get in these areas that are right near the expressways, I don't know if they have a formal term, but right by the on-ramps or exit ramps, there's just basically no access. And you see that on Harlem, near Harlem, you see that in a lot of locations. So particularly any new development, if that LaGrange access, even a right in, right out was there, I think you'd then be not putting as much traffic onto 183rd and White Eagle, and this would probably work a little bit smoother. Unfortunately, whoever came here, anybody that develops this site is gonna have that same issue. Now, there is a difference between what they're proposing and what like hotels would be there in terms of traffic numbers, but it would still be a challenge, I think, regardless, of who's there. So,
Dan, can I interject too?
Sure.
One concern I had reading the staff report, and I'd like to see Robinson and Dana Wayan and John with Public Works here. And regarding the topography, I know they have the detention pond on the highest portion of the site, which water doesn't flow uphill, it flows downhill. I know the petitioner will get a chance to explain, his reasoning for that. But I would like, in their weighing in on traffic and that, if they don't mind, also providing a professional opinion on that if possible.
Sure, absolutely. We did take a look at the stormwater plan from a preliminary engineering basis. While it is very non-conventional that you would choose to put the pond at the upstream portion of the site, it's not impossible. You can certainly move the water there, and I've gone over the plan with the applicant's engineer, and they will be sizing their storm sewers larger in order to convey the water to that pond. So all the elevations and all that will be fine-tuned during final engineering, and as you all know, this will also go through the MWRD review as well. So yes, it's non-conventional, but they have demonstrated that it can work, and through a final engineering process, we will make sure that it does work.
Okay.
and it does kind of flatten out, so there is, I don't know if we had the elevations or anything that were brought in. We can bring them to the public hearing, but there is gonna be an 11-foot wall essentially along LaGrange that's proposed there now, so 11-foot retaining wall. So that's kind of, they still need to level out the site, right?
Right. So how much fill approximately do they have to, because they're obviously not going to balance the site, they're going to have to bring it into,
Yeah.
to bring it up.
I don't have those numbers at this time, but maybe the applicant could speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Okay, thanks.
So that's part of it too, is like you're not actually bringing it 18 to 20 feet into the air. They are having to
Right.
kind of try and balance.
It's just
the
that a
whole
retaining wall and then, bringing in fill on site, and if you're building on that low portion, typically that's where you'll find poorer soils, typically at the low portion than the high portion of a site. So there may be some other incurred costs, unless the petitioner already got borings, and knows that you can do it on regular spread footings, but you may be incurring a lot of costs just to have that near the 183rd Street. But
And we can have them.
Sure,
I think
absolutely.
they're probably better to respond to that and to even why they're doing.
Right.
It was the very first question I think I asked when I saw
Right,
the site plan
right.
was, I'm not an engineer, but I know water goes downhill.
Right,
so
right.
like,
I mean,
on the
that,
high point, and it's got a lot to do with the market of a gas station and wanting to be on the hard corner for visibility purposes.
Fair enough.
But I think they're probably the better group to respond to that. And they can do that now if you want to. We can kind of, I don't know it's, a workshop's a little more informal. If we're on something, we can certainly address it now. Or if you want to go point by point and let them respond, we can do that as well.
let's go point by point, that way it'll be, it's not back and forth.
Sure.
Go ahead, yeah.
I guess that's all I have to kind of wrap up. I don't know if there's any other traffic item.
You did a
Any
great job running through all the bullet points. The one other item that I would add to, and it's been stated already, 183rd is under the jurisdiction of Cook County. And so we are still awaiting some formal response as far as what they're going to require, if anything, on 183rd. Cook County has not stated that they cannot have that access point, but Cook County is clearly not done with what they're looking at for the project. And so they have asked for some additional analyses, and so we are still waiting to hear what they're gonna have to say.
And did I hear that right, that there's potentially a traffic signal that might be recommended,
Asked
or?
for a traffic signal warrant study, so
Okay,
that's the step of saying, is it warranted based
Fair
on
enough.
this development and everything else
Okay.
that's happening out there? So we don't know. We do have, kind of a call or contact with them next week to discuss what's going on here, because I think everybody will benefit from knowing what their thought process and where they're at is.
Okay.
If they're gonna change something, if they're gonna ask for something, we're trying to get to that answer sooner than later, as we're trying to move this forward. So, we may know more next week even, on what they're gonna require. I'll say from, and I guess it's kinda anecdotal, but at least two people in the village take that way out back home every single day. And so the interesting thing is you can kind of tell 183rd Street was almost designed with a dual left turn lane back onto the Grange by design, just by the width. It could be striped in there with the light fairly easily. It already does back up to White Eagle on those peak times, so, and outside of the striped turn lane, so I'm usually sitting in the hashed area. The turn signal does clear the entire line of cars every time I'm there, almost on a daily basis at 5 o'clock at night. So again, just, I'm one time and one person, but there is, that stacking already goes to White Eagle. So I think my non-engineering mind's telling me there needs to be dual turn lanes there if you're adding more traffic.
Right,
Because it's already past kind of what it was designed for. So I'd be surprised if that didn't come out. I'm not Cook County, I'm not an engineer, but that seems to make sense to me. And that's not necessarily all on gas and wash, it's already, that part of it.
I mean, and hopefully the study would bear that out, because the last thing you wanna do is, it says there's no need, and then all of a sudden you're waiting 2 cycles or 3 cycles to make that turn, right? So, and then
that
everybody's, you
Yeah,
know,
that
kind
warrant
of
signal
complaining.
relates more to, I guess, White Eagle and 183rd is what, is there one needed there potentially? As you're kind of, again, you gotta wait to cut in to make a left out of the site, and then you have to sit on 180, or on White Eagle to make a
Yeah.
left onto that, and then wait again if you were going back to I-80. So it's you kinda got 3 points there where you're waiting, and 2 of them, you're potentially waiting for somebody to let you in to make the left.
And to me, that's just the external traffic. There's that internal traffic of the site, as Michael showed on the slides, drive-through number 1 and drive-through number 2. There's a lot of, for lack of a better term, pinch points, where you're gonna have a lot of competing traffic to go to different drive-throughs. I mean, and I can't help but suspect, and you had it in your slide, that, especially on 183rd, the one further to the west, that might be an issue for traffic going out into 183rd. But, I mean, it seems very, very crowded internally. I mean, but that's just my opinion on that. Any other comments on the traffic?
No.
Okay. With that, if you guys have no, John, do you have anything to add?
Just here in support of the recommendations from Robinson. I agree with some of the concerns of the traffic flow. And just supporting the progress we have to improve.
Appreciate it. Okay. At this time, I will ask the petitioner and his team if they want to come up and speak. Just write your name down, please, and then, sir, say your name and the company you represent.
How would I write afterwards, and I'll do it before I leave, I promise.
Sure.
Just want to tell you who's all here on the team.
Sure.
So if you have different nature of questions, direct that. I'm Chris Kolashevsky from WT Group. We are the architects and engineers for this project. Then with us, Dan Roller is from Gas and Wash. We have Mike Patrick in terms of the real estate side, and Ryan Martina on the legal side. So if you have those type of questions, we can answer those. One, we want to really state our appreciation in working with your staff. As the staff has pointed out, apologize for a little miscommunication here, but we did have a colored plan to show and then the relationship of us to the highway. But basically, this would be fine, this is fine. We are 0.3 miles from I-80. LaGrange has 43,000 cars on it. As the staff clearly pointed out, it's 9 lanes on LaGrange, 6 lanes on I-80. It is not a pedestrian or bicycle friendly environment. This site is screaming for this type of use. It's not a destination use that develops more traffic, but it's a siphoning use that uses the existing roadway traffic. And then just before I get into a little bit more of that, we are in total agreement. We will change the signage per any of the signage variances that the staff doesn't support. We're going to be in compliance. I just want to make the caveat that we're allowed square footage of over 700 square feet of signage. We're only asking for a little bit over 400. So we're leaving just a little bit less than 300 on the table, knowing that our use is, as was stated by staff, more of a multi-retail site rather than a single user site. We have the fueling business, we have the 2 food vendors inside the C-store, so we're talking 4 there, and the car wash is a 5th business. And so the signage variances that we were asking for are mainly 2 things. The stuff that brings them off the road, that based on the American Planners Association recommendations where they refer to the United States Sign Council, and in terms of the larger letters and stuff like that. But again, we will change any variances that the staff doesn't support to meet those. In regards to the traffic, our client, my client, and Anthony Walsh will not spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to create an unsafe and difficult to navigate site. That is the proverbial cutting your own throat, slitting your own wrist. A lot of money is being invested in this. Even to the point when I get to the stormwater retention, why we're adding that additional cost. The purpose is we can capture the existing traffic that's on the road. We don't need any additional traffic to make this site successful. The 43,000 cars that pass this road are significant enough to warrant this type of investment. And so we will be also looking, little total, our fault, apologize 100%, that we had a plan originally where we had a right-in only as the north driveway, and then we had a car and truck exit in the middle, and then a car and truck entrance at the very end, going from north to south, which really, I think, would appease more, and we're even going to go even further with the recommendations. Long story short, we thought we were meeting the comments. There was a concern put forth to reverse the flow of the CFO. In this view right here, what's happening is that the trucks are entering on the right-hand side of your page, and they're coming, I'm sorry, apologies. They're coming in through the middle curve cut, and they'll be facing to the right-hand side of the future facing south. And we had it previously where they were going north and coming out. And that's where the cars were coming out. So the cars are coming further away. When the staff suggests, we got comments to reverse that and make the trucks go the other way, we did that, and then that's how the left out became closer to the intersection. So, long story short, I'm stumbling on my words. We will work with your staff to make this work. We cannot design and build a site business, and so we will not go for business. So we're very thankful for the staff comments, and we're willing to work with us, and us with them. With just one of the couple of things in terms of the FAR ratio on the site, we're 1/20th the density allowed. FAR ratio is allowed for 1, we're 0.05 wide density. The floor area ratio is a ratio of the buildings to the land. It's a designation of showing, are you trying to put too much stuff on the site? And technically, we could be at 1, and we're again 0.05. So we're 1/20th the allowable density. And so this is a 6-acre site. By the time we which is subdivided now, the 8-acre site, we're roughly 6 acres, a little bit more. And so this is distributed across the property. You have one of these right in your own community in Harlem, where the stacking is half for the U-shaped stacking than what we're showing. And there is no difficulty with that, and that is a Dunkin' Donuts. This one, unfortunately, we quite frankly tried, and our signage drawings show, we were trying to get Dunkin' Donuts, and unfortunately, because of franchise agreements, we cannot have Dunkin' Donuts. So it's going to be a less intense user, yet we still have twice the amount of stacking for the U-shape. Those lanes right there, that's 36 plus the landscape area, which is another 10 to 12 feet. So we're talking, we almost have 50 feet from the point where a car is turning and making the U-turn into that, into the drive-through. So it's 50 feet, so it is not a, holy cow, I'm not gonna make this. That is a very easy turn to do that, right? The minimum radius for that is 35 feet, we have 50. So that's, we just wanna show that. We know too that on-site circulation, if you make it difficult for a person in a gas station to get around the site, get through the site, get on or off the site, what are they gonna do? They're gonna go to the next station that's much more convenient. So that's very, very important. So, long story short, I've got a couple other points, but I think I'll pass on that. Stormwater, you did have a question on that, which you touched on. The stormwater, it is shown that the distance from the pumps to the main entrance for the auto car, and that's that right end off of 183rd, that distance, every 5 feet you go further away from that street, you lose a significant amount of gallons and sales, enough that it warrants a hardship on the ROI for this investment. So we look at it and we balance and we go back and forth. And by putting the storm to the right and the high side, it does two things for us. One, it gives us the economics to drive the ROI. But two, this site needs to be balanced, and most of it needs, sites like this, most of the site needs to be raised. And so what we're digging out from here to create the storm is going over here as a fill, which will all be done in compacted and appropriate lifts. And if the material's not good, obviously, we won't. So actually putting the storm retention system on that side helps us get that soil to where we need it to level off the site, and it allows us to have that distance of the canopy to the roadway. So yes, it is going to be more expensive with the oversized pipes and stuff like that, but when we look at it, far beyond the initial construction cost for the 20 to 30 years, it's worth that investment. And gas and wash, as you know, built with quality materials. It's all masonry buildings. It's buildings that are built to last a long time. And yes, we'll upgrade the back, or the front, or the pedestrian side, however you want to say it, the side facing White Eagle. We will update that and make it more interesting. In our opinion, are we going to get a lot of pedestrian traffic? No disrespect to anyone or anything like that, but I'm looking at the other buildings that were built in this overlay district. Basically, you got the Country Inn and the Hilton down to the south there. They don't even have half the stuff we have in terms of sidewalks and landscaping and all that kind of stuff. And they would need every single variance that we would need. And I think that the staff would do that thing, because you're at I-80 and you're at a road that is 42,000 cars. feet we're allowed, we're only asking for 100. So we're not trying to, we're allowed an FAR of 1, we're only asking for 120 of that density, 105. And we're willing to work with the drives, and we're eliminating any variances at the state.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate your, you coming up here and talking. And I agree with you about, you know, you got 43,000 vehicles. It is a good spot. It's a good opportunity for fuel at that location. I'm glad to hear that you're working with staff or willing to work with staff on fine tuning. And I appreciate bringing the other signage into code where staff requested. So it's good to hear. At this time, you may sit down if you want to write your name, just so we have it on record. I'll go to the commissioners, and they may have some comments for discussion, and one of your team may have to come up to answer, or maybe even staff. At this time, I'll go to, let's go to Commissioner Bettenhausen.
Nothing at this particular time.
Okay,
I have the same concerns of traffic flow in the site, on the site, and traffic flow on surrounding roads.
okay, fair enough. Commissioner Merrick.
Yeah, so, I mean, the first thing that screamed out to me is the right-in on 183rd as a really difficult space. I mean, this is, as Dan and others have mentioned, a tough space even for car traffic, right, in that space. And I'm trying to think about exactly where that cut would be in, but I'm more concerned about the cut out, the right turn out of that, with people coming in off of LaGrange and hitting into 183rd. As everybody knows, everybody turns around that turn like it's 45, right? Because there's that green arrow heading around that turn. And wondering if you cut that off, what sort of problems does that cause on White Eagle Drive and the other space, right? So, and I, you know, I'm not an engineer, but just living through that space makes me concerned about that one. So, but the bigger one that I want to bring up for me, I know this isn't a pedestrian space, but everybody probably knows my concerns around automobility and pedestrians and running and biking and all that stuff, is thinking about the connections between the hotels and the pedestrians walking over to that space, right? And connecting up those things, and then also setting up for a time potentially, like I know we have some sidewalks that lead into the neighborhoods that are on the other side, and also know that, you know, that most people maybe won't avail themselves of that, since most people would even hop into a car rather than do a 10-minute walk to these spaces. But setting the space of, if we're gonna build sidewalks over there, if they can't be wider and asphalt rather than cement and built out for also recreational use. We're only one stoplight down from connecting up to where there are those ones. And so building in and thinking about the future, about ways that those could connect and make those more accessible for pedestrians and bikers and other folks. And I don't know exactly where that comes in, because it's hard to tell exactly what those sidewalks would connect up with. So, but those are the things that interest me.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Commissioner Gaskell.
No, I don't have anything right now.
Okay. Commissioner Gatto.
So my only thing is, you know, the concern about it being so busy and having two drive-through lanes, like the one on 183rd only has one. So what if we were to reduce it just to one, and then we don't have to have multiple driveway lanes going through? That would reduce it,
I agree.
right?
I agree.
Yeah.
That was my point I was gonna make too.
I mean,
Go ahead, though.
Michael, can you, or Jarrell, can you put, I guess, the previous slides up there? Yeah, drive-through one circulation. Now look at that. That is just for one drive-through. Drive-through two, if you advance, you know, you still have kind of the same pathways, but to the, and I do think
Right.
there's gonna be a pinch point at that,
right.
you know, 183rd. I
Right.
do believe
mean,
that.
I just know when we designed the one on 183rd, we had a lot of concerns with traffic also coming in off of, you know, 183rd coming in. And it's worked out great. And we only have one drive-through line there, and there's never a stack. You know, we never have stacking there. I mean, I go to that gas station probably twice a week. So, and the fact that it can't be a Dunkin' Donuts because there's one in the proximity, that was my only big fear, because Dunkin', we know, stacks. So, I mean, any other retailer that you get in there is probably not gonna stack as much, so I'm not concerned about that. But just the 2 drive-through lanes is what kinda makes me a little nervous to have both of them in there, and you have so much traffic coming different ways, and, you know, and then the one on 183rd, we have a complete break. There's a street that breaks to the car wash. So that traffic doesn't even feed through the actual gas station. So I don't know if there's a way to like break it, like kinda how we broke the, do you know, you know what I'm saying? You know
because
how-
this is locked because
It's a
of
lot.
LaGrange.
Yes.
So you really are trying to fit all this traffic in through, for lack of a better term, ancillary or less major streets, right?
Right.
Eh, Yeah, I mean,
that's just my 2 thoughts on like just the, how 183rd off of Harlem is set up right now. We designed that so we didn't want people coming in, making left-hand turns, you have to go all the way around, and then if you're going to the gas station, you go one way, if you're going to the car wash, you go the other way, and if you're hitting the drive-through, you come in that same way, you know? And there's only one drive-through lane, so that's my concerns.
I do want to ask the petitioner's team, so Chris, I know you mentioned it's not Dunkin' Donuts, and you probably do know who it there's, I don't know if you're at liberty to disclose. If you're not, that's fine, don't disclose. But, I mean, a couple of the, like Dunkin' Donuts stacks, Starbucks typically stacks. I always point to the Starbucks on Harlem Avenue and 159th as what not to do, because that stacks out into the, it's terrible.
Terrible.
So we've always tried to make sure that we don't fall in that, and the 2 Starbucks that have come into Tinley Park, I've tried those, they work great.
Even the Dunkin' that we designed on 171st and 80th is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no stacking really there. I mean, the way we we were really nervous about the parking lot there and how all the cars were gonna come in.
Yeah.
And every time I've been there, it's flowed great, and people seem to know where to go. So that's my only concern. Like, I feel like there's a better way to set this up so that it flows better. And I'm not an architect, so I don't really know.
Yeah, the main concern, obviously, it feels a little awkward as you're looking at the site plan. I think the way we've kind of started looking at, the issue itself isn't having 2 drive-through lanes. I think that can work on sites. It just, the concerns start to crop up of who you're talking about utilizing those, what are the stacking now and in the future. Is we could always have changes of what those tenants are. We usually attach it to the traffic report they have, so that way if McDonald's wants to come in here, we go, whoa, that's not gonna work. But I think the biggest concern we've had as staff is not, again, having 2 drive-through lanes, 2 tenants having that. It goes down to that 183rd Street access, and it's got nothing to really do with the drive-through itself. It's everything, right? You got people coming in, it's your main entrance in and out, you have a drive-through lane. And then you really hope there's always enough stacking there, but the concern becomes if there's not, even for a few moments, you break down a lot there, with people coming in from multiple directions.
I mean, is,
So that's been the one concern. They did add some additional stacking in there. They kind of looked at the location of the drive-through ordering station as well to make sure that was positioned in the right way to have as much stacking. I think my concerns would also be higher there if it was Dunkin', and that's what it was for a long time. So I think that's why we had such concern, is that Dunkin', Starbucks it's good, right? We want them to be busy, but the 171st Street and 80th took a lot. There's a lot before it came here to actually make that work in that site. And I've been on that one with 17 cars in the drive-thru, so I count them every time I'm there, because it still works. And if we would have done the first plan, it'd be out on 171st Street. So I think that's the one that really got us thinking about how's this work on that 183rd Street location. So I agree, that's kind of our biggest concern too. I think the petitioner has worked with this plan though to try and make it work as good as they can, and maybe figuring out either who the user is or just kind of what their max traffic generation is gonna be, helps to resolve some of those concerns. Because again, it's not just having two drive-throughs. It is a busy auto-oriented site that does take some directional signage to make sure people know they're going in the right drive-through. But again, they've done it on their other gas and wash sites as well too, and I think it's worked out. There could be a lot of traffic going a lot of different places. You have people going to a car wash, two drive-throughs, multiple different exits and entrances, telling people not to make lefts and when they can turn in and where trucks go and where trucks don't go. All of that combined leads to this.
So Dan,
How well does the signage work compared to just?
do we have
manual?
examples of this sort of layout in some other spaces that, that would help us understand that this would work here?
And
I'll
I,
leave that to them if they have a
Sure.
good one. I'll say this is fairly unique that there's not direct access, even the 183rd Street, from where the majority of traffic is coming from.
Right.
At all. So the majority of traffic to the site's coming from LaGrange, and they have to get off of LaGrange to get in and out of here. So
And
that's,
it's also the triple frontage.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Where you're on a corner, this is exacerbated by that third frontage.
so I don't know, maybe they do have examples of somewhere where they have no access on the main road and it kind of pulls it all to the exterior, because that's really the unique aspect
I mean,
of
if,
on
if,
the
and-
roadways.
if we know who the potential tenants are, like I say, you don't have to disclose them if it's not a public record, but this dipping down from 183rd, where you come in and go down to take a left, is there any, you would lose stacking, but can you make that where you pull in and you go due south or southeast and go up into that parking, into that drive-through lane rather, you'd lose a couple vehicles for stacking, but it seems to me to be like this awkward turn where it's like a peninsula, like Florida, where you're going around and then you come up the horn. It seems like such a non-intuitive, especially if you're coming off a White Eagle, you're coming all the way down there to make that kind of sharp U-turn into I don't know if that can be softened, so, you would lose some stacking, but I'm just throwing that out there, because to me, that seems very non-instinctual, but, I don't know. I don't know if that's I would think it would be cleaner than, going, west to go east. But, I'm sure you guys have looked at different configurations, Chris, but, is that something that's feasible? Is that something that,
We certainly will look at that, and quite frankly, now that it is in the Dunkin' Donuts has the most stringent requirements in terms of from window to menu board, they require 8 spaces. Most corporations are at 6, and so this is at 8, and that's what pushed the additional. Now that this is going to be, I'm not saying it is going to be a POPs, but it's going to be a POPs type use. So a lot less intensity, for both uses, actually. We will look at it, but it's just,
And I think one thing we've suggested is if there is a more intense use, the better place to put that is on the back drive-through rather than this U-shaped drive-through. Just because if there is gonna be stacking beyond the drive-through lane, preferably that's happening within the site. We've had that on a few others where, worst case scenario, and hopefully it's only a few moments or something. If it happens within the site and somebody's gotta wait a moment to back up a car, that's easier than it going onto some kind of public street situation. So just a recommendation there going forward, if you have a heavier user, to try and use that back drive-through for them.
and one of the things we just want to point out is, even at Harvey, you do have 2 food vendors in the building. It was just the one that the taco didn't at that time have drive-throughs. With, quite frankly, COVID, everyone's used to drive-throughs or curbside and stuff like that. And so that's really driving our marketing of the space itself. 80% of the sales in the drive, in a QSR type use goes through the drive-through. And so we have some users that are not as intense, but just from the marketability of the space. And if, quite frankly, we find that our second user doesn't like the drive-through, then that will become grassy.
an all-encompassing plan, and if it gets streamlined down, that's fine, yeah, okay.
The traffic report also considered that drive-through number one specifically as a coffee donut shop. And so I, as a non-traffic engineer, would assume that that's a much more peaky site user, and a restaurant is different. So the rear drive-through that they have, drive-through number two, the traffic analysis report for that one said less stacking was required. So for a coffee shop, more was required. So, maybe there is enough, maybe there isn't.
And the peak hours would be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we would
Right.
need to see like a revised report to
Okay.
indicate that.
Okay, is that fair, Chris? Okay. Okay,
Here's the one thing I forgot. to
Absolutely.
mention. In light of the other things that we're working with, we want to work with staff as well. We really thought that we looked at your parking regulations and that 57 was required, and we broke it down as the area of restaurant and area of retail and all that. And your report is saying 98, so we need to work with your staff to see where the difference is.
Okay.
With the interpretation.
okay,
Again, one.
fair enough. Okay, that's
And
good.
I think that number is just the number that we need to request a variance from. I think that there's probably plenty of parking on the site, and like I mentioned in the presentation, the fueling bays kind of should count as parking because that's how many convenience store users use the site. So we're, I think, pretty comfortable with the parking proposal.
Right, I mean, that,
Yeah.
he, instead, his report, he had like 94, he was including, like he said, people are gonna get gas, run in, get some beef jerky or something and run out, right? So, yeah, I think that otherwise the difference was what, 3 spaces? So that's.
Yeah, and I think the reoccurring theme that's come through this board is that our parking standards are probably a little high.
Yeah.
Right, so it's
So-
not specific to this, but our parking standards are from 1978.
Right.
We get it. It needs to be redone. It's on the to-do list along with a lot of other things, so.
Sure.
I can't speak for the plan commission or the board, but they've been used to seeing parking variations. And as long as you can show in your traffic report, hey, what we're doing is gonna work, that's usually what they're looking for, that's what we're looking for. We probably need to adjust those to not 1978 standards.
Okay, any more comments, Commissioner Gann?
Nothing further.
Okay, Commissioner Truxell.
Yeah, I've got a few. So I'm familiar with Gas and Wash. I'm a regular customer. I go to the one on 181st and 88th Avenue and LaGrange Road by Home Depot. Both of those have parking issues. And I think part of the issue is because they have gambling machines. And people go in there and they stay for hours. And I can tell you, it's crazy getting in and out of each of those. And sometimes I'm parking in the vacuum slot by the car wash to let my wife go in and get something. So that's a question I have, is there gonna be gambling machines? And I'll be specific with the concerns I have with these in and outs. 183rd Street coming in, there's gonna be accidents there, because people whip around the corner off LaGrange, and there's somebody that doesn't know which way they wanna go, and they're gonna be sitting there making a decision, they're gonna get rear-ended. The entrance or exit coming out onto White Eagle by 183rd Street, there's gonna be people in the left turn lane, and the people will not be able to make a left turn there. And they're gonna get frustrated, and they're gonna start making some crazy decisions, and there'll be more accidents. So those are my concerns specifically. I think it's too much in that, lot to have 2 restaurants. And that's what I have to say.
Okay, Chris, if you have anything in response, you don't have to necessarily respond, but those are just some comments.
Just the first point.
The gambling?
The game.
Gambling machines and the parking availability at 2 of your locations that I go to regularly, it's seriously
The parking
short.
at those locations are more like in the 28 range as opposed to the 52. So we have a lot more parking here. And.
But there's only one drive-through at 181st and 80th Avenue. And that's a
It's
coffee, that's
crazy.
and that's
It's
crazy.
Dunkin',
It
yeah,
backs
it's
up
crazy.
onto 88th Avenue. And it backs up into the entrance where you can't even get into the gas station in the
Yep.
morning. So, I mean, those are existing, and I see this, and I see you're trying to put more into a lot, which is gonna create the same problem. That's my concern,
I,
so.
I do want to add or interject, and staff can correct me. In the staff report, it mentioned about the gaming, it says that it's not, there's no parking ratio prescribed for gaming seats. So that might be a valid concern that there,
People go there for hours,
Hours.
and there's food, so they'll sit and eat
Yep.
and drink and spend hours. That's all they do, they, nothing else better to do.
Yeah.
is there any, does staff have any ideas in terms of,
I don't know how we exactly counted them. I would be thinking you'd count them similar to a restaurant seating there, or at a 1-to-1 parking ratio, because probably those people aren't carpooling together. You may have somebody, each, if there's 6, you might have each person driving separately, so either kind of a 1-to-1 parking for each machine, you have 1 stall, or something similar to a restaurant.
So LaGrange Road has Duke's drive-through, which is awesome, and then a bagel shop, they have a drive-through. And it's kind of, I don't go to those drive-throughs, I go in and get my order because I don't wanna get stuck in there, so, I just see some issues here, and I have to be honest, I think it's too much for this location.
any other?
That's my opinion, that's all it is, so.
Just for like, in terms of like, we did consider for parking spaces specifically. So we were using the restaurant.
Okay. And there's, it's a 1-to-1, and you have 4 gaming machines, or?
We were using the 1 to 2 and we were a little conservative.
Okay.
So for the restaurant, it's 1 for every 2 spaces.
Okay,
So that's what we use. And we have 6.
okay. Okay. I mean, you at least factored it in for your, did you have a,
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead, Don.
Probably for staff, I don't know about what's planned for the north side of 183rd Street there, but potentially is White Eagle Drive gonna be a cross street there? Across 183rd?
I don't think it would be a street per se. It may be, you really have 2 sites that would feed on that side of it. So I think it'd be kind of more like a driveway that would access the site that's to the east and to the west. But you're not gonna have a street go through there, cause it kind of would end up dead ending in the Loyola site. But you could potentially have a driveway on that side, and you'd want that to be aligned as much as possible. That would then feed the 2 lots that are on the north side of 183rd.
I'm just concerned about the density with the 2 hotels coming on the east side of this also. And the traffic on 183rd is going to become a nightmare more than it already is.
And there is, yeah, so we have the 2 hotels come in. I'll just say those, obviously, any use generates traffic, and it's gonna generate some on White Eagle. Hotels really don't generate a ton of traffic, so I don't know exactly what the hourly numbers are or anything, but even though they're bringing outside kind of transient people in there that aren't already on that roadway, it's fairly minimal. You might leave your hotel once or twice, but
Right.
if it's 100
They're slow.
rooms or
Yeah,
so.
Marriott has stated their daily traffic is similar to what the peak hourly is on this site, so that's, spread out over a lot of hours, that's not
Good.
very much.
But there is more stuff to be developed,
Right.
and we don't really know what that is out here.
Exactly.
Yes, right.
I'm
So
saying we have
still
to
have
decide
other lots. We have the lot just to the south of this too. That's part of it, the same lot right now that's being subdivided, so we don't even know necessarily what all the uses are gonna be out here. So there will be additional traffic.
The other
And that's
comment,
kind of why, one of the things we're really looking at to, if this moves forward, is just some kind of condition that goes, okay, if there's issues out here, you guys are gonna help us solve it, cause it's mostly gonna be generated by this site. I can't put it all on them, cause there's existing traffic out there, there's gonna be additional new development. But are they gonna cover their portion, kind of what's being generated out here, the issue? If a light ends up being needed, if roads have to be expanded, we don't wanna have to be stuck doing that after the fact and it kind of coming all out of the village. So that's kind of the one condition we're kind of asking for is, can we make sure we have some coverage there on the back end for that side of it?
I was gonna make another comment if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
This site is almost parallel to the site of CVS on 171st, where you're coming off LaGrange, you're making a right turn, you're turning into the CVS, and you're driving around the building to get, not a busy one, I agree, not near as busy, but it's the same layout, about the same distance, it looks like, from getting into that right turn lane and right turn out, right off LaGrange, right off 171st, I'm saying. Same as 183rd, so, but this is going to have much more traffic.
Yeah.
We all need gas. I only need my drugs once a month.
That's the car wash too. I mean, the car washes are great. I won't go anywhere else. Because they're,
It's a
and
good
and
one.
honestly, the business is so clean. Everyone I go to is spotless.
Right,
And
exactly.
that's why I go there. Everything works.
Yeah.
I love them. And you guys get the business, and I know this will be busy, and that's my concern. It's good, but it's bad. I mean, just the design is questionable here.
So just for everyone's knowledge, we have received preliminary IDOT and Cook County comments, that do not make comments on the actual placement of the drives, like, no, you can't hear that exit. But as Anna pointed out, we're getting now into the engineering detail.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Well, as long as there's consensus, prior to construction, I'm okay with that, if the county's okay, you guys are okay, and it's consistent with what KLOA is finding, I mean, you still always have to build it, right? I mean, no matter the best plan, sometimes miss something, but if there's consensus in the beginning.
I'm sorry, but I mean, if this is what we ended up with, I'm sure this has gone around the block a bunch of times to figure this out. And this is what we're left with. This is the best choice. It's still kind of scary to me.
Well, I mean, and
honestly, you know?
I know, and to Commissioner Truxell's point, I think Commissioner Merrick kind of hinted at this with, I know you got some sidewalks and stuff, and the staff report had, like, you see all that pedestrian sidewalks or crosswalks, and it's across lanes, it's across drive-throughs on that west side of the building. I mean, and it doesn't frankly look safe, right? It's not really a walkable site. What you were saying earlier, Chris, I agree, this isn't something where there's a lot of walking to begin with, right? You're not gonna have somebody just down the block walk to the gas station, right? But forward thinking, as Dan mentioned and as Commissioner Merrick mentioned, maybe one day you'll have connecting paths, right? And so, and that's why Commissioner Merrick was mentioning, maybe you go with an asphalt path instead of a concrete one, because maybe you will be able to connect somewhere north or something like that. But with that said, those pedestrian walkways, they give me heart palpitations just looking at that, and and that's not even seeing the drive-through paths. Like, look at that, wow, I mean, yeah.
I think our goal was to have something there, knowing you have the hotels, knowing
Right.
kind of just where even vehicles are going in this world. I think they've developed a very unique concept with gas and wash that seems to be very successful,
Right.
right? It's a little more than just a gas
Right.
station. I don't go there just because that's where I can get my fuel, because normally the prices are about 2 to 5 cents higher than every other gas station. So I'm willing to pay that because
Right.
it is clean, because
Yeah.
I can go swing by Pops, because I know their stuff is stocked in there, so.
And working,
It's not even
yeah.
the gas that really, at least for me personally, doesn't bring me into those sites. It's everything else, and that, it really is a convenience store.
Yeah.
It's more than just kind of your gas station stop and go. So I think it's got an ability there as things change over time to be something that could be walkable. Right now, it's a little scary and it doesn't really connect to much, but I think that's why at the very least we wanted to see, can we put in these paths? The topography also plays a big role in why that connection is the way it is from, we were trying to think about really the hotels more, because I'm like, if you're in a hotel, walking to a gas station, I've done it plenty of times, so it's not unique,
Right.
whether you're just going to get some water, pop, beer, food, whatever you're gonna do, that could be a constant trip, so.
Right.
We did kind of play that in and try and do the best we could with, again, a really tough site. We wanted a better path there, but I believe there is some topography issues, which is why it kind of ended up where it's at, in the middle of the site, rather than something more direct from the hotels, because you do have, you're gonna end up with like a sled hill down the sidewalk also doesn't become
The
a
killer,
good
of course,
use.
is across the 2% accessible slope on the curves and on the sidewalk. And that's where it really kind of dictated where east and west the sidewalk is going along, White Eagle. So that's kind of how it ended up there. But we did try to keep it on, of course, once you're in the site, you're on our drive, and yes, you have one spot where you're crossing.
Right. I mean,
So
I think
it's not for- but we-
sidewalks are better than none, right? I think there's an attempt there, so I think that's okay, you know.
And we wanted it, you know, kind of, if you just went strictly by the accessibility code, you'd go, okay, they have their one connection to a public sidewalk on 183rd Street, and that one's easier to make. But we kind of knew we needed something from the hotels. And is that the path everybody's gonna take? If it's not most direct, they may not. But hey, if somebody's in a wheelchair coming from there, they do have a path to get in there. It is something, so, we can look and see. I don't know if there's any better option, because I know we went back and forth on that one, to just try and get something here, because we do want to get these in. And does it connect to a wider network right now? No, but this area is actively developing with
Yeah.
Loyola. And along LaGrange, I think we don't really have good sidewalks, but everywhere else, we still want it to connect well. And we'll get there one day, I think. So we have a comp plan coming up and sidewalk gap programs and stuff like that for public works is important, so. Even the areas that don't have it, like our existing hotels, hopefully we'll get there one day to, whether it's through grants or funding, we can get there. So it's just, what can we put in place when we have these projects? We'll try and do the best we can.
So if I could just make a recommendation on behalf of Public Works and Engineering team. Most of everybody's comments here, including Commissioner Truxell, obviously this has gone through multiple reiterations. You know, this is somewhat closer to what we would like to see, obviously, on the engineering and traffic side of things. There's obviously a lot of concerns. You know, Chris's team has expressed multiple times their willingness to work with us. I just say we take note of everything everybody said here, along with our notes here, and if their team's willing to work with us, we just, you know, go back and hit it hard and just try to bring something back to you guys that's a little bit more
Yeah.
representing what everybody in this room is looking for.
That's fair.
That's fair, yeah.
that's
I got one more commissioner to give comments. John, I haven't forgotten you, Commissioner Hamilton. A lot of comments have been said, so if there's anything new, say it now.
The only comment I'd have at this point is, looks like there's just kind of conflicting goals for the site. You know, we have busy businesses here that are going to attract a lot of car traffic, and at the same time, you want to make it friendly for pedestrians. I don't know, you know, do we prioritize one over the other? And it sounds like we're already talking about compromising and just doing the best we can, so. You know, we've set up the situation to have a conflict of goals, and be interesting to see how it gets resolved. Also, the Public Works Department said they'll try to work something out here. Not a lot of time left, right, before this goes to the.
Well, it'll come back to us for the public hearing 2 weeks from now, so
Okay, is that enough
June
time to-
15th. That would be a question for Chris and.
We'll work with them, if we can make it work, then that'll be the goal.
Yeah.
I think they're already working on, so like they said, they've already got these comments, they're already working on some of this. So potentially we can get you something at that public hearing. If not, if they are still working on it, we can always,
Push.
they can choose to continue
Right.
it, or you could, but I think everybody's got the same goals here, so.
Right.
We'll kind of go revisit those access points, the traffic, the signage that they said, and we can come back and hopefully in a couple weeks have something.
Okay, that's fine, that's fair.
Perfect.
Yeah, what John said is right. It seems like, Chris, your team and the village have been working in good faith, so keep that up. I think that's a good positive. It's always good to have open channels of communication and transparency, so with that said,
And that's really what this meeting was for. So, like, that's the benefit of these workshops, is, you know, we don't wanna walk in, if there are these concerns in a public hearing, you know,
Right.
that happened there. I think this is useful for them to get the feedback. That's kinda why we have these on the project.
Right.
Thank you guys for all your feedback and thanks to
And so staff, you have everything you need at this time then? And, okay. Any other comments from you or your team, Chris?
No, we thank you. I think all that's been said by everyone.
Okay. Excellent. So, right now, there'll be a public hearing. Come back in 2 weeks. If still more progress needs to be made, I guess, staff will let us know. But until then, June 15th. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. Have a good night. Okay, we'll move on to the good of the order.
Just two quick things for me. One is Lori passed her AICP exam, so she's now a certified planner.
Nice.
So I gave her the day off today. I think this is the first one she hasn't been to outside of like one vacation in there, so. But when you see her next time, congratulate her, because that's a big accomplishment, a lot of studying, so. Glad she passed that. And then, as of today, we had the planning manager position accepted, so I don't have a ton of details I can throw out there right now, but that is moving forward in terms of having a planning manager step into my old role, so I'm very excited for that.
Nice.
To not be doing as much as I am now, and have them come in, so they have some good experience, and I think will be a good asset as we move forward, so. Those are kind of the two things. I touched on a lot of the project stuff at the last meeting, so I won't do it again here. But if anybody has questions, I'm free to answer them.
Any questions?
I
No?
got a question about Amazon. Do we know exactly what's going on? It looks to me like they're not coming.
Yeah, no, and that's one of 40-plus locations like that in the nation. They're not telling Tinley Park anything. They're not telling anybody else. And even the property owner, we have a good relationship with Brixmor. They don't know anything. As of right now, they're paying their lease, and what we've been told is they're not pulling out of the Chicago market. They might be changing prototypes.
Well, they
But
closed a bunch
if
of
they
stores.
were, would they be telling us? Probably not either, so we don't know at this point. The hope is they still go in there, the property owner's still committed to a grocer, because that breeds their success of their center. So if for some reason they do formally pull out, we'll work with the property owner to get something else in there. Good news is Pete's is moving forward across the street, so.
Well, you
Pete's
wouldn't
Fresh
know it,
Market's
you
a
know, I
good
see
one.
big piles of dirt and crap over there, but I don't see anything being built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I'll leave that to the engineers. There's a lot of underground work
I
and
understand. I
process. So I think they are inching closer to you being able to see foundations and walls going up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like they're moving gravel from one site to the other and a bunch of pipes around. But it is happening. It is moving forward, so.
Well, the reason I mentioned about Amazon is because they're closing a bunch of stores because it isn't working the way they decided or thought it would. And then I come by, and all the signage is down
Yeah.
on the building. It doesn't say Amazon Fresh anymore. They took the sign they took their sign off the signboard by the street. So it just kind of tells me that they're not coming around.
And they did that across the country, so it wasn't even just ours. Arlington Heights has a zombie store just like us. That's kind of the closest one, but there's stuff on Staten Island. It's all over the country, and they did the same thing everywhere.
Right.
We're the ones that had told the property owner they took the signs down because they didn't even know. So they're just not very good at communication. It is Amazon, and there's nothing we really have to force them to open. We'd love to,
But it's just,
Barely
it defeats the
force it.
purpose to develop something
but it is.
for somebody, and then
Yeah,
it's
and
still
then
an empty
fix-
And the
space.
property owners work very well with us, because they're
To
the ones
basically
that-
kick
A
out.
lot of that was instigated by them coming, and even though they're getting the rents, that really helps drive traffic to the center, so it's disappointing to everyone. We're hopeful they maybe pivot to some other model or something else and stay there, and if not, we're prepared to work with the property owner to find another user in there. So, it's not
I think
ideal.
it'd be interesting if we could broker a deal with Waltz to come back. You wouldn't,
Yeah.
you know, they're sorely missed.
Yeah, I'll leave that to it's got more to do with the property owner and what Waltz was willing to agree to. But it wasn't
Well,
my-
certainly, that's what I'm talking about, getting involved in brokering some kind of arrangement, not just throwing it out there, you know, come up with something that would put them there, put them back there.
Sure. Well, they're looking at all the different type of users that could go in there if Amazon pulls out, so. we'll figure it out.
What's the deal with the mental institution?
Ah, mic drop.
Yeah, that's well beyond me, so I'll leave it at, I mean, it's what's already been in the papers, so.
All right, I just didn't
The
know
bill
if you-
passed through the state for the Park District to get it.
Yeah,
Obviously, the village's vision for being able to fund the cleanup of that site was some private development,
okay.
and not parks. So we're still trying to work with the Park District though, and I can't say what has or hasn't happened. I'd have to defer to the village manager on that.
Okay.
But we're here to try and work with them to help figure out how it gets cleaned up and developed going forward. So I think that everyone wants to see that one way or another. What's out there today is very sad. So
Yes.
I think everybody can agree on that, and if we can get it demolished and cleaned up. and-
That's a
and
step in
out
the
of
right
city's
direction,
hands,
yeah.
Right.
I think everybody,
Yeah,
has
I think
already
that's-
stated, I think that's everybody in Town
Right.
Park's goal.
yeah, that's consensus, I think. Get it
Those-
cleaned up.
Those first
yeah.
few steps are all agreed upon.
Demolition.
Anything else then?
Question, I mean, small question. Eventually, the questions about the mental health center would be coming here to this commission?
Potentially, as the zoning sits right now, it does not allow for a public park on it. So there's potential that there would be requests for rezoning. Certainly subdivision, it's all kind of one lot, and there's not utilities, there's not easements, there's not roads out there. So whether it's the park district or the village or a private developer, that all needs to be thought out as you're splitting pieces off. And that is what this board's role is to say, how's this all work? So there's likely something will come here eventually.
So maybe, Dan, a follow-up on that. It strikes me that the master plan that we're starting to kick into would be an appropriate place to work with the park and other folks to figure out how that space cleaned up fits into the rest of the village.
Yeah, so we're doing the comprehensive planning for the overall village. I don't know if that comes before, after, how far we are along in each process, but I think the 280 acres in the center of town is gonna be a main focal point of what would be in the plan, certainly part of it.
Sounds like leverage. Good place to work.
Okay, with that said, we'll move on to receiving comments from the public. Seeing no public here, we'll move on to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion to close tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Do I hear a
Second.
second? Motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned at 8:36 PM. Good night, everybody.